Hello, inclusive cannabis community. This is Philip underscore, bringing to you another interview, in fact, our first for the new year for 2020. And I have the wonderful Morgan Underwood with me, and she is a cannabis cultivator and entrepreneur. And she's going to just share with us more about her professional journey, what she's doing currently as a cannabis professional, helping to reshape and make some impact and influence where she is in Michigan. And without further ado, I want to welcome Morgan. Hey, Morgan.
Hey, Philip, thanks for having me.
Thank you for being a part of this. Thank you for your time. I'll just go ahead and jump in and also just give you an opportunity just to share more about yourself. So you can tell me more about your title. I know we said you're a cannabis cultivator and entrepreneur, but what does that specifically mean?
Yeah, so I'm a caregiver in the state of Michigan, meaning that I cultivate up to 72 plants for my patients or people who have their medical marijuana cards, also in the state of Michigan. So I produce flower, but also I make solventless concentrates, edibles, and tinctures. My brand is called Ganga Girl.
I like that. That is really, really cool. Well, shouts out for that. That's a fantastic brand. Of course, we're going to learn more about that once we get into the interview as well. And given that you're kind of in this position now as a professional, tell us more about your journey and how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, so I'm basically self-taught. I taught myself everything that I know by being on YouTube and just reading all the time, following people who I think do a good job of growing organically. Um, and yeah, basically just being super driven, I guess, to learn as much as I can has got me to where I'm at right now.
Okay. Well, how did you become interested in becoming a cultivator?
Okay, so I probably started smoking when I was in high school, I guess, just like recreationally in like a social setting with friends. Um, when I went to college, I started using cannabis as more of like a holistic tool in my life, just for my own personal health and wellness. Then I've always kind of been like really intrigued by holistic wellness and like natural remedies. So I went from college to Costa Rica where I studied holistic wellness. I was teaching yoga there and meditation, things like that, and just trying to absorb as much knowledge as I could, being in a super different place. It was super amazing, and I feel like I was really enlightened and inspired just by the way of life and the culture there. When I came back to Michigan, it was very disappointing, I guess, to say the least. I just feel like I noticed that the people were a lot less happy overall. And I wanted to do whatever I could in a small way to try to create a little bit more happiness. So I opened up a little pop up yoga studio, and we partnered with the local medical marijuana shop. And so a lot of our customers or people who came for our classes would use their products before they came to class. And I kind of realized then that a lot of people use cannabis as a holistic tool in their healing journeys. Like it's a really big component for a lot of people, um, no matter what they're healing from. So I became a caregiver in the medical marijuana program. And basically, I've just been obsessed with cultivation and processing and everything cannabis ever since.
Fantastic. And actually, kudos to you for letting us know that your cannabis journey started in high school. A lot of people are like, oh, I started studying, when I was out of college. It's like, yeah, okay, but it's great that you were able to take that and kind of incorporate other areas of wellness, fitness, other kind of tying things together. And then also coming back to the States and saying, hey, I know that we can use this product as a way to help bring people together, provide more of a level of balance, peace, health and wellness, within the community. So applauding you for not keeping it to yourself.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So you mentioned how you got into the industry. You mentioned how you learned, and also a lot of people will say that they're self-taught, but you mentioned that you went to school for holistic medicine and wellness. So I'm sure that also played a huge level of influence with you tying that into the cannabis part as well, right?
Well, I actually went to school for math. I studied math. Um, I'm kind of like a nerd, so it kind of just goes along that I'm like into the growing because math and science is just how my brain works. Like it works in numbers, so that's like the easiest subject to me was math. So that's why I chose it.
Wow, I wish I could say
Strange,
that.
I know.
But
It's
that was
strange, but
no, and you tap on how important it is to for someone that wants to be a grower or cultivator, more so on the development side of the product, that it does take a level of math, chemistry, and understanding to really do this well. It isn't just I'm going to, get some plants and put them in some soil and watch them
right.
grow.
Yeah, it's a lot more difficult than what people would expect.
Yeah, yeah. Um, so I wanted to know just overall your perspective when it comes to a lot of changes going on. A lot more states are either going to full legalization or to some degree, some type of recreational or at least a medicinal level. Um, Certainly, since you've been back within the states, do you envision more change? Have you seen an impact with the recent changes, especially with legalization in Michigan a year ago?
Definitely. So I've been growing for about 5 years, and I would say within the last few years, definitely the last year, I've seen a huge push for more brands and companies that have real stories and real neighborhood faces behind them instead of like corporate names. A lot more so on the West Coast. You see a lot more local people having ownership in these companies, but in Michigan, it's still behind, I would say. So
Mm.
that's where I think it's going.
Do you think maybe in the next couple of years that Michigan and other, because we aren't California or Washington, some of the more, like you said, West Coast states, really being able like to push and really get into the industry. Do you see that happening faster within Michigan or more so a slower process?
Um, Gosh, honestly, I think it's happening pretty fast. It feels like a gold rush. Like everyone's like, gotta get into the cannabis industry really quick, and I feel like only a portion of those companies are actually gonna survive in the long run.
Okay, yeah. Well, and to kind of elaborate on that a little bit further, do you see any specific positives? I mean, of course, more access is great, but anything specific with those positives, and also any potential negatives with having kind of more of an open market?
So in Michigan specifically, for caregivers, one negative is that we used to be able to sell our products to the medical dispensaries here. And ever since legalization, we have been completely cut off from that. And I mean, it honestly benefited the entire supply chain. It wasn't just the caregivers benefiting it from it because a lot of the grows relied on, or dispensaries relied on those products, and a lot of the caregivers, because they grow in like smaller batches, their products really really good. So I'd say that's one negative here in Michigan. One positive though is that it seems like um, the marijuana regulatory agency here in Michigan wants to put licenses and ownership into the hands of people who have been in the industry for a while before it was legalized. So I think that's good. And they are creating more and more programs throughout the country like that, more in some states than others. But I think that it's important that everyone is really vocal about, banding together and saying that every state or every city that is going to allow recreational or medical sales for cannabis, they need to have social equity programs or some type of resources that are available to the people who don't have, a $10 million sitting in their bank account, or they don't have, access to a place where they can get the practice to grow 500 plants or whatever. So I think just um, really seeing people and states and cities create those programs has been a huge positive, but it needs to definitely continue.
Absolutely. And as an entrepreneur, do you feel that state lawmakers are listening to individuals like yourselves when they're creating laws, or that at least you have their ear when they're, changing things around and making certain influences?
For sure, yeah. Here in Michigan, I definitely feel like they're listening. It's pretty awesome. It's been a really good experience so far. It's difficult, but because it's new, it's difficult. But I definitely think that they have a genuine interest in the people and how these laws are actually being carried out day to day.
That's great to hear.
Mhm.
And I'm going to shift this a little bit, get a little bit more specific, because you mentioned the importance of equity and, being able to make sure that there's a level of fairness for everyone. Because traditionally, a lot of Black and Brown communities were the ones that really were kind of creating the industry and establishing it before it was legal. And as you mentioned, certain states, even though legalization is here, from a policy perspective and an access perspective, that still hasn't been a seamless process for certain states and certain places. So, as even a woman and a woman of color, have you encountered any challenges, any roadblocks or hurdles?
Every day, honestly. I if it's not, it's always just because of the way I look.
Mm.
Whether it's racial or being a woman, it's literally something every single day. Like just people are nasty. I don't know what their deal is, but I would say if it's not something that happens personally to me, then it's another woman who is, a powerful woman in the industry or in her, you know, industry, whatever. They're saying the same thing. So it's like honestly daily. I would say there's like bullying and harassment and just disrespect. Which is really unfortunate, but also, I mean, it's I'm personally like not gonna let that stop me from getting to where I want to be. I want other people to, know that no matter how many times they get passed up for opportunities just based on the way they look, that perseverance, you'll finally get there. Just mainly women and women of color. Like, I honestly feel like we receive like the very last opportunity, even when like I've had way more experience than other people, or it doesn't really matter. I've been in the industry for years and I know what I'm doing. I run my own thing, and still I'm always getting passed up for opportunities. So I would say that daily there's definitely struggles and hurdles.
Okay. And so, and actually for me and probably a lot of folks who are also men that listen to the podcast, this is enlightening, because at times we kind of think that if, as minorities, people of color, like everything in terms of what you experience is the same, but we often realize that there's different issues based on gender, based on access. I think you look beautiful, so I don't know why people are hating on you based on your looks. But maybe they're just jealous. I don't know, but certainly What do you feel would be a way to kind of alleviate that, or what are some things that you want maybe others to know regarding being a woman within this industry?
I would say definitely look out for one another and like collaboration over competition every day. When I meet another woman who's in the cannabis or hemp space, I'm like, we gotta be friends. Like, we need to work together. Anything we can do, seriously, because not even just women, but just minorities and people who have a like minded sense of values. I mean, we need to really stick together because I think that the future of the cannabis industry is going to depend on, who is going to hold the power of the cannabis industry is going to depend on if all the people can come together and put the ownership and those licenses into the right hands.
Understood. Understood. Well, and to shift us a little bit further, on a more lighter note as well, what is it that you love the most about your profession?
I love the plants and the people. It probably sounds really cliche, but honestly, just cultivating quality products for people that I care about and people that I want to see be happy from using the products in their lifestyle. That's everything to me.
Okay, wonderful. Um, and I also wanted to ask if you had like this legislative wand, right? If there was a law that you could change or even create, kind of what would that be? I mean, because it seems like you're very abreast of what's going on um, from a legislative perspective in terms of what's affecting your state. So if there's something you could change or undo just to make the process easier, what would that be?
Um, I would say, in my opinion, one of the biggest problems right now is minus social equity is that I guess this would fall under social equity, but a lot of people who have cannabis felonies from before legalization started happening, they're unable to hold licenses that are plant touching. So basically, someone who's doing the exact same thing or was doing the exact same thing as what's happening now, but just a little too soon, now they're unable to do it, even though they might have 20 years of experience and they were the ones who were protesting to change these laws. Like, that is wrong.
Yeah. And as mentioned, it just goes back to having communities or certain communities that build the industry, and then from a legal perspective, being able to cut them out either financially or because of a criminal situation,
Mhm.
conviction, whatever. So I think that that certainly is, it lends to the conversation of equity because we talk about it from, maybe a gender perspective, a race perspective, but also if you had a felony, had a court case, how does that limit you? And we know it limits so many people in other ways where it comes to employment, voting, and so on. So I think that's a really good thing to mention.
And a lot of these people who have, cannabis charges, it's not like they're bad people. A lot of these people are like me. They want to grow cannabis to help their communities, their neighbors, their family. A lot of people, they were growing hemp or cannabis for their parents who have an illness, like, or something, equivalent. It's not like these people are criminals. So
Right.
it really doesn't make sense.
Yeah. It's always so funny how certain things, because I remember some years ago when people were like, well, we can never legalize cannabis. It's just, it's too extreme. And you think about like, okay, well, they did that. And now you have these other things that they're saying, oh, we can't give access. It's always kind of another little roadblock. And then you have to break that down,
Mhm.
and move to the next step. So I think that's really profound that you mentioned that because, again, people are also thinking about the post impacts of legalization and certainly if it provides access to everyone to get involved.
Yeah, we definitely have some work to do.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask if you had any advice for maybe someone like yourself that has an interest, wants to get into the industry, tips, who to follow, how do you learn? Certainly just want to see if you had any words about that.
Yeah, I would say if you're looking to get in the industry, don't be intimidated if you don't know how to grow. One of the main things, I honestly get a lot of DMs like on Instagram and social media from other people who are minorities who want to get into the cannabis industry, but they're like, I don't know how to grow. Like, what can I do? And I think there's so many, I mean, there's infinite possibilities of businesses that can be cannabis related and they are not plant touching. Like you can have a cannabis computer software and never touch a plant, but still have a million, multi-million dollar company. So I feel like if you're looking to get in this industry, like look at the skills you already have and try to figure out how you can somehow use that to the best ability to benefit the industry.
That makes a lot of sense. I think the good thing about the industry still being relatively new from a legal perspective across the country, excluding states that have been doing it for years, I would say that there's still room to be innovative. And so, as you mentioned, if you do have an idea or want to start a business around cannabis, maybe it's not necessarily connected to the actual product, but there's still opportunity to make an impact into the industry.
For sure. A huge opportunity.
Well, I want to give you an opportunity to share any final words, any additional thoughts. Those were all of my questions about who you are and getting to know you, but any additional things you want to share?
Lastly, I would just say for anyone who has been a little bit, interested in this, feel free to reach out to me, DM me, email me, whatever. If you have questions about growing or just how you can, start a cannabis business, I'm not like, the most knowledgeable person ever, but I'm definitely willing to share what I do know. So, yeah, definitely reach out to me. My website is Ganga Girl MI for Michigan.com and on all social media, Ganga Girl MI.
Lovely. I was going to ask you, how can they reach out to you? How can they find you? Look out for Ganga Girl, support Ganga Girl, follow the pages, check her out, support her. I think it's so important to do so. And with that being said, any upcoming events, anything else we need to plug that we can include?
Yeah, we're going to be celebrating Black History Month, of course. So we have some exciting things on our social media happening all month long. And also February 13th, the day before Valentine's Day, we're going to be sponsoring a virtual music event. So if you're into like electronic music, we're going to have like some local DJs mixing. So definitely tune into that.
Lovely. We will make sure that the link to that event is also in the Inclusive Cannabis Community page, so you can follow that. But with that being said, I want to thank Morgan. I want to thank you personally for just giving us your time, sharing your story, telling us about kind of your experience, your perspective. These are really enlightening stories that people can really learn about how it is for women in the industry, for minorities, for other groups, other states. So that's really what the inclusive community is all about. For anyone that has any interest on being in the podcast, if you are also a cannabis professional, please put "pass the bud" in a comment under this video post. And also, if you have any comments for myself, for Morgan, or any feedback about the interview overall, please add that to the comments and feel free to like and share. Again, this is Philip _ with the Budpass podcast, powered by SimploPro. And again, we thank you for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.